Welcome back to ABCGH Spoilers channel. Today we will learn about the intriguing developments unfolding in Port Charles that have viewers on the edge of their seats. The unraveling truth and impending consequences. Trina Robinson finds herself in a delicate situation with Kai Taylor, desperately trying to justify her passion. In an emotional exchange, Trina questions why she should abandon something that brings her such fulfillment and joy. This conversation reveals the inner conflict Trina experiences between personal desires and external expectations, highlighting her determination to stay true to herself despite mounting pressure. Meanwhile, Jack Brennan has strategically positioned himself to confront Anna Devane. This unexpected encounter promises to shift the power dynamics in Port Charles, as Jack likely possesses information that could compromise Anna's standing or force her to make difficult choices. Their history of complex interactions suggests this confrontation will have far-reaching implications for multiple storylines. The curious connection between Jason Morgan and Easter Island emerges when Jocelyn Jacks approaches him with questions about the mysterious location. Jason's previous experiences there hint at untold adventures that might soon become relevant to current events in Port Charles. This conversation could potentially unveil aspects of Jason's past that have remained hidden, adding new dimensions to his character while possibly foreshadowing future plot developments involving both characters. Family loyalties tested. Alexis Davis will soon face one of the most challenging dilemmas any mother could encounter, being caught between her daughters Christina and Molly Lansing Davis. This painful position will force Alexis to examine where her loyalties truly lie and whether she can maintain her professional ethics while protecting her family. The emotional toll this takes on Alexis will likely manifest in unexpected ways, potentially driving her to make decisions that could alter her relationships permanently. Christina Corinthos Davis finds herself in an increasingly precarious position as evidence mounts against her. Lucky Spencer's initial assistance with her stockroom alibi now places both of them at risk of serious consequences. The tension between them escalates dramatically when Lucky confronts Christina, declaring that she has crossed an unacceptable line and must face the repercussions of her actions. This confrontation represents a critical turning point in their relationship and in Christina's storyline. The most prudent course of action for Christina would be to come forward with a confession before law enforcement officials arrive with handcuffs. Her window of opportunity narrows with each passing hour as Rick's memories become clearer and Ava's investigation yields more damning evidence. The psychological pressure building on Christina will likely lead to dramatic scenes as she weighs her limited options against increasingly severe potential consequences. Hospital revelations and mounting tensions. At General Hospital, Ava Jerome has discovered the shocking truth that someone deliberately sabotaged the vehicle by cutting the brake lines. This revelation transforms what appeared to be an accident into a potential attempted murder investigation. Armed with this alarming information, Ava confronts Elizabeth Liz Baldwin, firing a barrage of probing questions about the circumstances surrounding the crash. Liz, growing increasingly uncomfortable with the interrogation, eventually challenges Ava's motives, creating a tense standoff between these two formidable women. Elizabeth's relationship with Lucky faces significant strain as he conceals crucial information from her. This deception creates an invisible barrier between them that grows more substantial with each passing day. The foundation of trust upon which their romance was built shows dangerous cracks that threaten to collapse their entire relationship. Lucky's internal conflict between loyalty to Christina and honesty with Elizabeth represents one of the most emotionally complex aspects of the current storyline. The critical flashback. The most pivotal development centers around Rick Lansing, whose memory of the accident has suddenly returned with startling clarity. In his flashback, Rick recalls the terrifying moment when he realized the brakes had failed, having just enough time to warn Elizabeth before impact. More significantly, after the collision, as he lifted his head from the steering wheel, he distinctly saw Christina through the shattered windshield, placing her directly at the scene. This recovered memory transforms Rick into the key witness who could bring the entire truth to light. In the upcoming episode, viewers will witness Rick preparing to share his recollection with someone whose identity remains unclear. The question looms large: will Rick reveal Christina's involvement, setting in motion a chain of events that could lead to her arrest and prosecution? The convergence of Rick's returning memory and Ava's discovery about the tampered brake lines creates a perfect storm that will likely culminate in Christina facing serious legal consequences. The clock ticks loudly as multiple characters possess pieces of the truth, each making individual decisions about loyalty, honesty, and self-preservation that will collectively determine the fate of everyone involved. Next, we will learn about the explosive drama unfolding between several key Port Charles residents that has left one lawyer fighting for his life and multiple families in turmoil. The legal aftermath. Ava Jerome finds herself at the center of a devastating situation as her relationship with attorney Rick Lansing has evolved from professional to deeply personal. What began as a business arrangement has blossomed into genuine affection, making the current crisis all the more heartbreaking for the often misunderstood Jerome's sister. With Rick currently lying unresponsive in a hospital bed at General Hospital, Ava is absolutely devastated, her emotions vacillating between grief and rage as she contemplates who might be responsible for this tragedy. The prognosis for Rick remains uncertain, with doctors working tirelessly to stabilize his condition following the horrific car accident. Elizabeth Baldwin, who was also in the vehicle during the crash, sustained injuries as well, though less severe than Rick's. This connection adds another layer of complexity to the situation, as Elizabeth's former flame Lucky Spencer has already uncovered crucial evidence about the incident. Lucky's investigation has revealed something truly shocking: the brake lines on Rick's car were deliberately cut in what appears to be a calculated act of sabotage. This wasn't a random act of violence or mechanical failure, but a premeditated attempt that has resulted in potentially life-altering consequences for multiple Port Charles residents. A mother's vengeance. The roots of this current crisis stretch back to a custody battle that ignited a powder keg of resentment. Ava Jerome has been engaged in an ongoing legal dispute regarding the child she shares with notorious mob boss Sonny Corinthos. This contentious situation required testimony from various parties, including Christina Corinthos, Sonny's daughter, who was subpoenaed to appear in court. Christina's involvement in the custody proceedings created a perfect storm of tension, especially given her already complicated family dynamics. Her relationship with her father Sonny has always been complex, and being pulled into his disputes with Ava only exacerbated existing tensions. The courtroom became yet another battlefield in the ongoing Jerome Corinthos war, with innocent bystanders increasingly caught in the crossfire. Ava's legal representation during these proceedings was none other than Rick Lansing, who successfully argued her case. The judge ultimately ruled in Ava's favor, determining that a tragic incident involving Christina was indeed an accident rather than something that warranted criminal charges against Ava. This legal victory for Ava and Rick would set the stage for the current catastrophe unfolding in Port Charles. The tragic catalyst. Last summer marked a turning point in this saga when Christina, 8 months pregnant as a surrogate for her sister Molly Lansing Davis, confronted Ava at the Metro Court. The confrontation quickly escalated beyond verbal sparring, fueled by Christina's fury over Ava's legal maneuvers regarding custody and the subpoena that forced her involvement. During this heated exchange, the unthinkable happened: Christina lost her balance and fell through a window in a horrific accident. The consequences were devastating, resulting in the loss of the baby she was carrying for her sister. This tragedy sent shockwaves through multiple families in Port Charles, creating ripples of grief that continue to this day. Molly and her partner were devastated by the loss of their expected child, while Christina suffered both physical and profound psychological trauma. Rather than processing her grief in a healthy manner, Christina fixated on Ava as the cause of her suffering, despite the court's ruling that the incident was accidental. This misplaced blame would become an obsession that would drive Christina to increasingly dangerous behavior. A descent into revenge. Since the court decision that absolved Ava of responsibility, Christina's mental state has deteriorated significantly. She has become consumed by her need to blame Ava for not only the loss of the baby but for virtually every subsequent misfortune in her life. This fixation has transformed from grief into a dangerous obsession that has altered Christina's personality and decision-making. The most recent confrontation between these two women occurred at Ava's apartment, where Christina issued thinly veiled threats that Rick Lansing overheard from an adjacent room. These weren't idle words spoken in anger but foreshadowing of the drastic action Christina was prepared to take. Her emotional state had reached a breaking point where rational thought had been replaced by a singular focus on making Ava suffer. Following this heated exchange, Christina proceeded directly to the parking garage with a clear but misguided purpose. In a calculated act of sabotage, she cut the brake lines on the vehicle parked in Ava's designated spot, believing she was targeting her nemesis. This deliberate action crossed the line from verbal threats to potentially deadly action, revealing how far Christina's obsession had driven her. A tragic mistake. In a cruel twist of fate, Christina's vengeful plan went horribly awry. The car she sabotaged wasn't Ava's at all but belonged to Rick Lansing. This critical error would have devastating consequences that Christina never anticipated, drawing innocent parties into her vendetta against Ava. Rick, unaware of the sabotage, later got into his car with Elizabeth Baldwin as his passenger. As they drove through Port Charles, the compromised brake system failed catastrophically, resulting in a serious crash that left Rick unresponsive and Elizabeth injured. What was intended as an attack on Ava instead harmed the very attorney who had represented her, along with Elizabeth, who had no connection to the original conflict. Lucky Spencer has already pieced together evidence pointing to Christina as the saboteur, placing him in a difficult position. His history with Elizabeth makes this case personally significant, and despite any sympathy he might have for Christina's past trauma, the deliberate nature of her actions and the harm caused to Elizabeth make it virtually impossible for him to keep her secret. The coming reckoning. As Ava processes the shock of Rick's condition, her investigative instincts are beginning to activate. Once she speaks with Elizabeth and learns about the brake failure, it won't take long for her to connect this incident to her recent confrontation with Christina. The realization that Christina's actions, though intended for her, have instead gravely injured someone she cares about will likely intensify Ava's desire for justice. The tables have now turned dramatically. After months of being on the defensive against Christina's accusations and threats, Ava now has legitimate cause to pursue legal action. She will likely demand that Christina face the full consequences of her actions, pushing for maximum charges that could include attempted murder, given the deliberate nature of the brake line sabotage. Ava's pursuit of justice will be fueled not only by her history with Christina but also by her genuine concern for Rick. What began as a professional relationship has evolved into something deeper, giving Ava personal as well as principled reasons to ensure Christina is held accountable for the harm she has caused. Next, we will learn about the intricate dance of love, secrets, and dangers surrounding Elizabeth Baldwin and Lucky Spencer on General Hospital. Their story, unfolding before our eyes, presents a tapestry of emotions that captivates viewers and keeps us on the edge of our seats. Let's dive deep into this compelling narrative that has fans everywhere talking. The shadow of threats and complications. Are Elizabeth and Lucky destined to crumble under the weight of circumstances beyond their control? This question haunts viewers as we witness the precarious foundation of their rekindled connection. The looming presence of Jen Sidwell creates an atmosphere of impending doom that cannot be ignored. This mysterious antagonist has potentially marked Lucky as his target, weaving a dangerous web that threatens to ensnare our beloved character when he least expects it. The complexity of this situation extends far beyond a simple external threat. Jen's represents not just physical danger, but the embodiment of past choices and consequences that have followed Lucky throughout his journey. His shadowy presence serves as a metaphor for the unresolved aspects of Lucky's life that continue to haunt him despite his attempts to move forward. Meanwhile, Elizabeth finds herself in an unexpected alliance with Rick Lansing, a development that adds layers of complication to her relationship with Lucky. Rick's role as a supportive figure during Elizabeth's recovery creates a dynamic that tests Lucky's patience and resolve. The irony of Rick's position as both victim and potential wedge between Elizabeth and Lucky cannot be overlooked. Should Rick recover fully, his influence over Elizabeth might strengthen, potentially creating a triangle of loyalty that could tear apart the fragile bonds being reformed. The emotional landscape becomes even more treacherous when we consider Elizabeth's potential reaction to learning about Lucky's knowledge regarding the accident. Her trust, already fragile from years of separation and past disappointments, hangs by a thread that could snap at any moment. Christina's secret and Lucky's dilemma. The explosive truth about Christina Corinthos Davis sits like a powder keg at the center of this unfolding drama. Lucky bears the tremendous burden of knowing that Christina deliberately sabotaged Rick's vehicle by cutting the brake line, directly causing the accident that injured both Rick and Elizabeth. This knowledge places Lucky in an impossible position that tests his moral compass and loyalty. His decision to maintain silence about Christina's actions stems from a complex web of motivations. Perhaps he fears the repercussions from Christina's powerful family connections, particularly her mob boss father Sonny Corinthos, whose wrath could bring devastation to Port Charles. Or maybe Lucky believes in Christina's redemption, hoping she'll come forward on her own terms and face the consequences of her actions with dignity. Whatever his reasoning, this secret creates an ethical quandary that grows more complicated with each passing day. The longer Lucky conceals the truth, the more significant the betrayal will appear to Elizabeth when the truth inevitably surfaces. Every moment of comfort he offers Elizabeth carries the shadow of his deception, a contradiction that threatens to poison their reconnection from within. The psychological toll of carrying such knowledge manifests in subtle ways: hesitation in Lucky's eyes during tender moments, cryptic responses when Elizabeth discusses the accident, and the constant internal struggle between protecting Christina and being honest with the woman he loves. This internal conflict represents the classic dilemma between truth and protection, forcing Lucky to question which ultimately serves love better. The accident's aftermath and emotional turmoil. Elizabeth's recovery from the car accident forms a crucial backdrop to this unfolding relationship drama. Her physical injuries, while healing, leave emotional scars that influence her perspective and vulnerability. The accident has placed her in a position of dependence that contrasts sharply with her usual self-sufficient nature as both a dedicated nurse and single mother. This period of recovery creates a unique window of emotional openness for Elizabeth. The trauma has stripped away some of her carefully constructed defenses, allowing her to reconnect with feelings for Lucky that she may have suppressed during their years apart. There's a poignant beauty in how vulnerability sometimes creates the perfect conditions for love to flourish anew. However, the same vulnerability makes the potential betrayal all the more devastating. Elizabeth's trust in Lucky grows precisely when his secret poses the greatest threat to their relationship. The juxtaposition of her increasing emotional investment against the ticking time bomb of Lucky's knowledge creates a dramatic tension that keeps viewers invested in their story. The accident also serves as a physical manifestation of the damage that secrets and misdeeds can cause. Just as the tampered brakes led to a physical crash, the hidden truths threaten to cause an emotional collision that could leave both characters even more wounded than before. The chemistry of reconnection. Despite the obstacles they face, the undeniable chemistry between Elizabeth and Lucky provides a compelling reason to hope for their future. Their reunion ignites sparks that remind longtime viewers why this couple captured hearts in the first place. Those meaningful glances across rooms, the electricity of accidental touches, and conversations laden with subtext speak to a connection that transcends their complicated history. Their shared past creates a foundation of understanding that new relationships simply cannot match. Elizabeth and Lucky know each other's strengths, flaws, and histories in ways that create an intimacy that feels both comfortable and exciting. They've witnessed each other's growth from young love to mature individuals, creating a rare depth to their bond. Lucky's adventures away from Port Charles have transformed him, adding layers of experience and perspective that make him both familiar and refreshingly new to Elizabeth. Similarly, her journey as a single mother and dedicated healthcare professional has strengthened her character in ways that Lucky finds both impressive and attractive. They're rediscovering each other as the people they become, not just who they once were. This rediscovery process brings moments of genuine joy that shine through the drama surrounding them. Quiet conversations about their separate journeys, shared laughter over memories, and the comfortable silence that only comes with deep connection, these elements remind viewers why we should root for them despite the obstacles.